Well, this will be a fun conversation, I think, with John DeLeva here. We're at Hood Canalé. How are you?
Hey, doing well today, Jeff. Yourself?
I'm great, and thank you so much for sitting with me because we have a lot to kind of go over. A year or so ago, I did a feature on Canalé itself, the great pizza joint here at the end of Dalby Road at the Bend in Union. But your journey and your time in Mason County started decades before this.
I moved here in 1990.
Okay.
I'm a UW grad. Job market wasn't good after college, so I'm back to the LA area for a while. Went to grad school, took a few jobs, but I always wanted to get back up here. And when a remote job became available, I could live anywhere I want. I came back up to Seattle, and that's when I realized I'd really like to live about an hour and a half away from Seattle. I'd like to be able to get there, but give me a small town. And I did a small town search everywhere around Seattle, hour plus away, from Enumclaw, Carbonado, out to Index and Skycomish, Port Townsend to Port Ludlow, Hoodsport to Union. But I kept coming back here. Just the views, the people I met, the previous rendition of the Alderbrook Inn when it was a family-run hotel, the community here, it just kept bringing me in. And finally I said, this is the spot.
And so you've been here now for, what is that, 25, 30 years?
35
years. Yeah. And you've made a great name for yourself here locally as a person who offers and delivers amazing pizza out of the oven here, which we'll get into in itself. But you do so much more than I think people realize when it comes to promotion, marketing, but in the sense of worldwide marketing. You're able to have Union be your home base, but you're advocating for the whole country now around the world.
About now 20 years ago, I started publishing a magazine called Discover America. And I had a business partner, 50-50 partner out of Bellevue, and she and I saw that there were magazines for every state, but there wasn't one for the country. So we joined forces and resources, and in 6 languages printed 1,250,000 copies a year to encourage international travelers to come to the U.S.
When you are editing that magazine, how do you spread the love equally across either? I mean, you're probably not going to hit every 50 states, every magazine, but maybe you figured out a way to do that. But how do you? I mean, America is so large and diverse. How does that work?
Well, the way we did it, because at that time we owned the magazine, so we didn't have to go to anybody else to ask permission. We started going to places like Berlin, where there's a ITB, International Tourism Board. It's an annual event where all Europeans come. There's days for consumers, days for media, days for trade, and they're looking about traveling anywhere in the world. We became part of a USA booth, and we started asking all the above. When you consider the U.S., what do you want to see? Where do you want to go? And there were a couple themes we heard over and over. Open spaces, your national parks, Route 66, Graceland came up a lot. But people started throwing in a lot of American icons. Some were doing it geographically. Alaska, to many, was the holy grail. I just want to get to Alaska once. And so we concentrated our editorial based on what travelers and prospective travelers were telling us they wanted to see.
So it seems like a lot of that comes from Hollywood.
Yes,
no
doubt.
What gets sent out there across the world for people to see, Route 66 has got great traditions and great bones about moving across the country. And, was it outside of those major locales, what were some of the other perceptions in the 90s of what people could do here. What America was all about.
Clearly, it varied by country. And in general terms, the Swiss, the Germans, the Austrians, they were more of like the mountaineers and the beaten path towns.
Okay.
They were the ones that had heard of then Moab, Utah. And they were the ones that were getting to really the mountaintops and the trails and Big Bend National Park and the places that were a little less traveled. You got to some of the places like London, and they were looking for more of the Chicago, New York museum scenes. Again, super generalizing, but they were there more so for Broadway and the Met and the Museum of Modern Art. And but we kept going around and asking. And Australians, again, they primarily wanted the West, and they wanted big road trips. They used to love starting in one place and ending in another. Many would say San Francisco's their beginning and Houston's their end.
Wow. And I can see kind of a correlation between those Middle European countries and the mountains that we have here, or the built-up metropolis of a London compared to New York and Chicago. So similar to what they know locally, but on a global scale.
Right.
How do you then look at highlighting smaller areas like Union or a Mason County? If people are coming to Seattle and they want to see the fish flying at Pike's Place Market or something, they want to take a ferry ride somewhere, but then also saying there's so much more than just top line, top of the fold. You know, when you say, where are you from? You have to almost just say Seattle, or else you get into a whole conversation about, well, where are you or what? I don't.
It's funny you bring that up. I was lucky enough as a travel writer. One of the projects I had 12 years in a row was to write the Washington State Visitor's Guide. So from 99 to 2011, I'd see all 39 counties in Washington State and learn a lot of the more off-the-books rural areas. And because we live in one of those, it was easy to promote it because I'd always talk about the thrill of the big city and then the nearby escape. And we have so much here, right? So you always take pride in where you're from, and I certainly do. And whether it be Mount Eleanor, the Steel Bridge, or just paddling from the Alderbrook Resort to Tahuya and back, right? It just goes on and on what we have here. The Salmon Center, the Skokomish Flats. It was always easy to connect. You're probably going to fly into Seattle, yet only an hour and a half this way. And, you know, and I always find, instead of telling someone what you want to tell them, ask them what they really want to do. If somebody says, I know Chihuly was around here somewhere, where do I find great glass art? Let them lead and then kind of customize where they might go based on that.
You mentioned the 39 counties in Washington, and you sent me a text the other day that said, on this day, 30 years ago, I started my Nation Counties road trip. Tell me about that.
That was me and a couple fraternity brothers from University of Washington and a couple friends from my first job after that. We were trying to find a way to keep the five of us guys connected when life was going to pull us apart. You know, we saw jobs, wives, maybe kids, grad school. We saw all these things that were going to pull us away. What do we do to keep us connected? And it was road trips and a competition. And one of the guys goes, why don't we just get maps of the U.S. and say who can go to all 50 states first? And two of us started laughing and said, we already did that. Let's do something else. And yet another guy in the group goes, well, you know, Metzger's makes these maps, and there's one of every county in the U.S. None of us knew how many. We quickly looked it up, 3,086. We made that's the deal. We all bought those maps and said March 1st, 1986, day one, wherever you wake up, that's your first county. And whoever gets the most in 10 years wins.
Uh-huh. And you got them?
I did. I got them all. The last one was August 25 of 1995. And I kept saying I'm saving the best for last. It was San Juan County, Washington. That was before I had ever written that guide. I actually had never been to San Juan County in my life.
Wow.
And what a trip.
What were some of the main things, speaking mostly rural now, what were some of the through lines that you kind of noticed in every rural community, every rural county?
The coffee clubs.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'd be on the road and I'd always want to stop somewhere myself for a cup. And I started noticing the community bonds that I immediately think, like right now, of Davenport, Washington, just one of a couple hundred places where, and often, like here in Union, there's like a guy's table and then there's a ladies' table. And sometimes they mix, sometimes they don't. But
yeah.
I did love that little morning community that happened over coffee and tea.
35 years is a long time, and you still do this work on a basis where you're out traveling across the world promoting. What over these years have you seen in the travel trends of people here to America, the travel perceptions in general of America, and how has that affected the tourism coming in?
Biggest trend is how people get their information today.
Okay.
I mean, naturally, as almost all of us have, we've gone from Lonely Planet and Rick Steves guides to whatever's on our phone and what we may subscribe to. So going from print to digital, it's huge. I think on the upside of that, the information's ready, it's available, it takes away a lot of the secret places. But on the downside of it reduces spontaneity. I know so many friends that go on trips these days, whether it be those inbound to the States from around the world or my own friends that are going to another country. They got every day planned. They know where they're going to be every night. They got these activities set. It seems like people have lost the spontaneity. I know you're going on a trip to Berlin here real soon. I'm hoping there's giant voids in your days, so there's things that you can just walk and pick a neighborhood and find things you had never heard of, and it just so
the main thing that we're looking at is outside of the race. We're going for the marathon, and outside of the race is that we have access to all of the zones for public transit. That, and an idea that some of the things need to be not kid-centric for our 11-year-old, but at least somewhat enjoyable for him. But yeah, we're looking at making sure there's a lot of time to walk down here or move over there or take the bus to here, knowing hopefully we can get back and everything.
And one of the great things, the first time I went to Berlin was directly connected to the magazine business as we were going there, and it's I love when you can make mistakes and not worry about it. Oh no, I got to be somewhere in an hour. No, build in time, get on the U-Bahn or the S-Bahn or a bus or however you're going to travel around Berlin, and just get on and go. And you know what? You go the wrong way, jump off, figure it out, go back on the train the other way. Let these things happen. Don't be so plugged in that you're always going to be where you're going to be. Let the block or the station stop that you didn't expect pop up every now and then.
You mentioned some of the secret places may be easier to get. I wonder too if you had 10 people try to make an itinerary about going to Berlin, we'll stick with that example, how similar all 10 would be, because the algorithms are pushing up the popular ones and maybe lowering the understanding of the lesser known places, and you compare everybody's itinerary and it's all kind of cookie cutter the same almost. And that's kind of where the travel agent in the day used to be a benefit.
Right. Take Berlin. I mean, the almost like any major European city, there's a couple things you got to get to the Brandenburg Gate.
Right.
You got to get to Checkpoint Charlie, right? So boom, now there's 1, 2. Maybe you want Berlin Tower. There's 3, but now you got 7 that I would hope anybody who knows Berlin and shared info would try really hard to truly come up with 7 things that are very different or not known.
Yeah.
And often those become the highlights. It's like Checkpoint Charlie was pretty cool. It was a great piece of history. However, and that's what I just want to see more people doing, discovering for their own. When I was a travel writer, I used to always go to Shy Beach out by between Cape Alava and Cape Flattery. So special. And my friends used to like give me the index finger and say, you better never write about this. And I never did, right? And for a long time, it didn't show up anywhere until I think it was Sunset did, and then maybe AAA Journey did, and other magazines did. And then, of course, it's such an Instagrammable location, and everyone did. And now it feels like it's, God, it's our special place. There's too many people.
Yeah.
And I always hope that some places just don't get that kind of media and remain special.
That's a hard thing to balance, because as a TripAdvisor, we'll call it, you want people to experience some of those great memories that you had at the beach, for example. But at the same time, I was interviewing somebody they had a resort sunrise in Hoodsport, and he's like, "Oh, I want to tell everybody, but I don't want to tell anybody." It's right. A real kind of catch-22 when you're trying to promote these things, because you don't want to oversaturate the world's biggest ball of yarn versus this corner cute little diner or something that really encapsulates all of Route 66, for example.
Yeah. I mean, even look locally. I mean, a couple of our iconic places, the Steel Bridge, pretty powerful. The setting, the drop.
Yeah.
Just imagining how it was built. And it's nice to go, and if a few people are there, it's cool. You want to share it, but you don't want to get there and now you can't even find a place to park because so many people are there.
Right.
It's Mount Eleanor was the same way. It's a magnificent trail, right? It's 2 miles, 2,000 feet up. It's very doable, and on top you're looking at 50 other Olympic peaks, and you want people to see and say, wow, you guys are lucky. Look where you live.
Yeah.
Look around here. But you don't want there to be a half a mile line of cars on the gravel road to get to the trail. And so, yeah, there is a trade-off with that.
It seems like COVID exacerbated a lot of what we take for granted here when it comes to getting outdoors and opportunities to explore but be, distanced when we were working through all that.
Everyone has a different COVID experience. It was the rural areas really got a lot of the play because everyone was trying to escape from the cities.
Yeah.
And a lot of people did discover Mason County, Clallam, Jefferson, Grays Harbor. I mean, everybody knew like one dot in each place, and now they got to know them a little better. So for good and bad, I mean, we're in the business of bringing in visitors. We just don't want too many.
Yeah. When you talk to your counterparts across the country, did they have those similar experiences?
Very much. What I do today is I represent 10 U.S. states and territories, and in all of them, my territory includes Michigan, so you've got the Detroit Metro, and people ran up to the UP. Includes Minneapolis, St. Paul, people ran up to the Northern Lake Country. Oregon, same thing. The Portland Metro to the Oregon coast. Washington, the Seattle Metro, out this way or into the Cascades, Leavenworth, Twist, Winthrop, and beyond. Yeah. It was very, very similar.
Well, bringing it here again, you've made Hood Canalé and adjacent the Cameo Boutique as part of this stop-off a must visit now. There are days here, you have live music often, but there are days here when it will be wall to wall under the tent, all the way out onto the waterfront, that people are enjoying the pizzas. And so now this has become in itself its own tourist destination, especially with the proximity to the Alderbrook and people staying there, walking down and things like that. How much are you gaming the marketing because you know so much about how to get people here? You go, we got this figured out. Let me show you what I've been doing for the last 30 years in promotion of the country, the states, the ruralness, and because this place is hopping now.
Well, thanks. When my wife, Jolica, and I, and one of my fraternity brothers all sat down and thought, wow, Pam and Gary Hansen someday are gonna retire. Let's talk a little about creating a new gathering place, a new venue, because Robin Hood, which for several decades was our iconic go-to place for dining, for special events, for the pub, and we got to bring that back somehow. So our number one reason to do this was, I guess, 1, 2, and 3. Love of good music, good food and drink, and bringing people together. So from the beginning, the music element was super important. The unique and really good food and drink was important, but having a place for our little community to gather. Excuse me. And I guess, what's the term? To jump the shark. You don't want to get so big where the locals don't want to come here anymore.
Yeah.
But I do love, like last night, for example, we had 40, 50 local people and friends celebrating, and then we also had about 25 come over from Alderbrook. So we had a nice balance of community and out-of-town experience. That's the zone I want to be. The people that are coming to Union, visiting, say from Seattle, Portland, or anywhere else that are staying at Alderbrook, they now have another place beyond everything the resort has to offer, and they can come here and be just as welcome at the same time as the locals.
You mentioned the Hansons here. Cameo Boutique has been a staple at the end of Dalby Road here in Union for as long as I can remember. At the last Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce North Mason Chamber event that was here, the announcement was made that she's going to be moving up to the Union Square area, and that's giving you an opportunity to expand in this footprint. So tell everybody what the plans are for this, because like you mentioned, for a lot of the time, this is essentially, except for the grotto, an outdoor experience here.
We, from the beginning, when we began, Jolik and I began working with Pam and Gary, the talk was that we were going to take over the building after 3 years. Pam has run Cameo for 42 years.
Yeah.
She didn't know, we didn't know at the end of those 3 years, which is coming up here in a couple months, if she was going to retire or not. And she wants to keep Cameo going, and we want to keep the plan of taking over the building. So it's a best case scenario, I think, for the community. Pam and her brother Ed, who manages the business with her, they're going to be moving right across from Union Square Deli. And the place where the chiropractor is now, who's retiring, I think, September 30th. They'll move in there about October 1st. And then Hood Canalé will take over the building. We'll probably spend this winter transitioning it, but it'll allow us down the road year-round dining. We've done it under the tent in the winter, but it's tough.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep it more than 60 degrees out here, but it will give us that indoor place, say, for November, December, January, February. It'll allow us to have a little bit of a New York deli meat counter. We'll take the cheeses and the meats that people love on their pizzas, and we'll sell the sliced versions.
Okay.
My wife is an amazing jeweler. She has a small case in here now, but she has a lot more that will appear in the new building.
Yeah. And finally out of the second room at the house or something like
exactly.
that.
Yes. Yeah, we are running out of space there. And then our good friend Kelly, who is a partner in the business now and also the GM of the restaurant, she used to have a retail store. It was a mobile retail store. Jolica used to own a retail store in Maui. The two of them now are just licking their chops over, wow, 1,000 square feet to do some retail here.
Yeah.
So you're going to see probably gelato and espresso. You're going to see some new fashion coming in from Kelly and Jolica. You're going to see expansion of jewelry. You're going to see Hood Canalé merchandise. You're going to see like a little Italian deli in there to some degree. And then you're going to have a place. We're going to have a place to keep it going year round.
People are used to eating outside through many of the winter months. I can see how you say it gets difficult out here. One of the things back to the COVID times was the explosion of people at Hama Hama for those A-frames. You know, they loved the experience of being outside. And so that can continue on here for sure. And expansion on the inside, you know, because you're right. It gets cold sometimes. The snow happens. Winter in Washington is a fickle beast, and you never quite know what to do with it. But it's very exciting to again hear the movement of Cameo while remaining in our community for over 4 decades is really something to be thankful and special about. And the enhancements here, I think, will only continue to make this spot a must visit. And you're right, it is a fine balance of making sure the locals keep coming back to help pay for those ongoing bills, but then get the boost of the visitors that are in our community so often.
You know, in a small town, you always want more than less. You want to make sure when you expand your business, it doesn't negatively affect other business. We'll probably still never open in the mornings. We have a nice deli, the Union Square Deli, right across from where Pam will be.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get into that business. And you want to just add to the community. And I want to be real careful. Like when we talk with Pam, we won't carry anything she does. And it's almost like when we procure our wines, we have wine reps come in every Wednesday, and we ask for. We don't want anything that you'll find at the Union Country Store or at the deli. We just try to keep offering different and complement each other. If you're going to grow as a tourism destination, even just a little bit, I would love it when somebody stays in Alderbrook and they find us, and then we send them to Pam, and then Pam sends them next door to the Weed Patch, and the Weed Patch sends them to Carrie's Collectibles, and then they bounce back to the Union Country Store. That makes it so people come to Union, don't just check it off.
Right.
Been there, done that.
Yep.
They say, been there, but I didn't get to do it all. I got to come back. Or they got to tell someone else to get here. That's how we grow our tourism product.
And that kind of circles back to what we were talking about, kind of these pre-built itineraries or these kind of form-fed computer-generated ones you see, and it is almost like, well, you got to go to Union and drive by the water wheel. Well, okay, we did that, check off. Now we got to fill in all these other spots because the computer told us we need to hit up all these spots if we're driving the 101 around or whatever. Right. And without the opportunity to stop down, take those extra 2 or 3 hours to zoom around to these little boutiques that we have.
So it's certainly nice when you do things by word of mouth.
Yeah.
One thing, Jeff, that you've been part of the creation of is the Wildside app.
Sure.
Which, again, balances. It's out there. It shows people all we have. It gives them the opportunity to put an itinerary together. Right? It complements the print products. It complements what they're. I mean, we're really lucky in this county between Rachel publishing the Fjord magazine and your partnership with KMAS, and there aren't that many places you go where you find local ownership of the media, and we're all able together put people in a little bit of a, what do you call it, little ecosystem when they come here. And you can hear unique messages. You can read them in the magazine. You can see them in the paper. You can hear them on the radio. And then if we've got a community, we're all ambassadors for each other. I think that's how you almost, I don't know if that called organically, grow it just by all working together.
People are often surprised as to what is available here in Mason County with the weekly newspaper and the radio station and the magazines. People go, well, does that even work anymore? Well, in a community like Mason, it does work because people take pride and ownership in it. I saw a post, somebody posted something on some radio Facebook page earlier this morning. It was like, are there any locally owned AM stations anymore? And I think there was, 4 or 5 posts. Somebody was kind enough to put KMAS on the list. That's how I got the notification. But it is few and far between to find something that isn't necessarily corporate driven, that is looking for the, that bottom line, versus community driven that's trying to get the message out.
You were asking what ties all the communities together. You go to 3,086 counties and you see probably 9,086 communities or whatever that number might be. Local radio stations, one, for the programming, which I always enjoyed hearing different DJs. When I fly home from anywhere and I get in KMAS range, it's a pretty cool thing for me. Now, my demo might not match everyone out there, but I feel like I'm hearing Jeff Slakey. I'm hearing Rachel Hansen. I'm hearing the voices, and then I'm hearing the commercials of some of the businesses in the area, and then whatever song you're playing, it makes me feel like, welcome home.
Yeah.
I'm coming to a place that's not giving me corporate or worldly. I can get that everywhere else. You're making me feel at home.
I appreciate that.
I dig that. And always enjoyed that while on the road.
Yeah.
And as I look at road trips ahead, I've got a couple I'll be making to Michigan and Utah in the next 30 days. I love that car time. I'm not a Sirius XM radio guy. I love letting that spin.
Scanning the dial.
All kinds of music, all kinds of voices.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's always been something at the station. I've been there for over 20 years now, and it's always been something that I've held true to is we're not like polished Rick D's. You're going to hear mess ups here and there and whatever, and they mess up too. And we give the best product available that we can, but I would default to what's happening here in Shelton, Mason County, versus anything that's going on anywhere else, because like you said, people can find that information now on their own, somewhere else, make their own stations, but nowhere else are you going to hear Rachel in the afternoons, or Will doing the overnights, or me doing the mornings. And then you see us walking around town, and you can go, hey, I heard you talking about this event, or make sure you remember to tell folks about that event. And that's kind of, I think, like you said, that's a draw across the country for the ruralness, the revitalization, the connectiveness.
One word that we hear a lot, we do sentiment studies. What are people looking for? What are their feelings about coming here? But the word that I don't think it's overused yet, but I'm hearing it a lot, is people are looking for authenticity, authentic experiences. And that's all part of it. And, my wife and I go to a lot of music festivals, but there are many nights when I'm here on Thursday night and we have open mic, and the talent we get here, you don't always know who's going to show up.
Right.
Scott Lessman's going to host it, and he's fabulous, but you don't know who's going to be in the lineup. But you're going to have some incredible talent. And I've been here on a couple Thursday nights saying that was as good as Bumbershoot.
Yeah.
Or better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing what we have here and what we can be proud of here. And that's another thing that draws people here, is that they say, wow, people really love their lives in Mason County. There's struggles just like everything else. But if you kind of, in aggregate, half the time people are paddling on the canal, half the time they're eating good pizza, listening to amazing artists. The other half of the time they're climbing the mountains that we have here. We in the city, bust our hump 52 weeks out of the year, and we want to take that 1 3-day weekend. Where are we going? Well, we're going where these guys live and play and enjoy themselves while still working very hard and, keeping things going.
It is nice, and we are lucky to live to where other people want to go to vacation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it's always nice talking to you. I only wish that we had gotten our friendship going more sooner. I feel like it's just in the last few years that you and I have really connected. But I know, like you mentioned on the start of your trip, you had, and this was before I got there, but you had made the proclamation to KMAS in the Journal that you were off and to hit all the counties. But it's, no time like the present, I suppose.
Yeah. And going back to that the first bit of media that ever came when we got to the last county was in the Shelton Mason County Journal. And that was actually the first of 105 interviews that summer.
That's amazing.
And that really, it got in the National Enquirer. It got on BBC Radio. And they were fun. I love when you get any kind of reporter that challenges you, not just, what was your favorite. And you're good at asking this stuff. Try to get a little. I'm not going to use the term out of the box because that's cliche, but a little out of the can or a little out of the cone or whatever we want to say here. And that was a lot of fun, but it all started right here.
That's amazing.
So
there is so much to be proud of, and as someone who has visited every county in the country, as well as multiple states across, or multiple countries around the world, he continues to call this place home and helps to promote and support what's happening right here. So, somebody that's seen as much as John has could take their pick pretty much anywhere and chooses to live here for, obviously, like we've been talking about, so all the right reasons.
Well, Jeff, thanks for including me. Fun conversation today.
Yeah.
I'll look forward to seeing you around more, and together we'll figure out some other unique ways to share the secrets of our amazing county, but not too much.
Yeah, not too much.
We got to come up with that balance, right?
We'll say, definitely go down that way. Don't look at anything over there for sure. That's when all the locals are hanging out over here and stuff like that. All right, good to talk with you.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Cheers.